Ooh, my fee.
It is common practice to keep one's valuables in a safe behind a painting. It should not really pose a challenge for a criminal.
Yeah, why didn't they come after the safe? I mean, they had all night. What's interesting as well is the maid. She wasn't harmed.
Antique coins, possibly of value, but they're scattered without care.
So Eustace, your current physical and mental state is of great concern. There are several signs of hepatic decomposition, not composition. Okay, that is decomposing. What? Of hepatic decompensation. The last time we met, your eyes were bloodshot. Your skin was tinged with yellow. There's a particular odour from your breath that is common in those suffering from liver damage. Too much drinking. Then we have the lung abscesses that we've discussed. The leg cramps you have described to me are a cause of all caused. You have described to me are caused by. I hate medical words. An alteration of the nervous system, which in turn is caused by an excess of alcohol. That includes the tremors. Your liver seems excessively hard at the time of your examination, which is a sign of an evolving psoriasis. There are also signs of ascites fluid in the peritoneal cavity, which are evident with your swollen stomach. The pain beneath your left rib indicates a pancreatic malady, which may lead to a fatal fulminant pancreatitis. In other words, you're dying in many places. Your condition may pose a risk to others. Your excessive alcohol consumption lowers your self-control, heightens your aggression. I'm available to help with this problem. There are a number of treatment options, including having your hands chopped off so you can never strike your wife again, but, you know, do no harm. Okay, so that's completed that. Should talk to her about this. We can't talk to her about this.
Your ladyship?
Can we talk to the maid about this? Is that what we're supposed to be talking about, though? History of violence? Addiction to alcohol and a nervous disorder leads to a violent man. Yeah, it's probably better to talk to her about this first. See, that's why I've been holding off on bringing something so delicate up.
Sir Eustace's doctor speaks of his violent behaviour.
Yes, Sir Eustace was an extremely violent man. A detestable human being, to be more precise. It is true that he once threw a decanter at me, and all because I dared to stand up to him in defence of my mistress. Sly devil. God forgive me that I should speak of him so now that he's dead, but a devil he was, if ever one walked the earth. We met him only 18 months ago. She'd only just arrived in London. Yes, it was her first voyage. She'd never been from home before. Wonder with his title and his money and his false London ways. If she made a mistake, she has paid for it, if ever a woman did. She doesn't have any friends here, so it was specially hard for her.
Does have a lot of concern and care for Lady Brackenstall, that's for sure. Long history serving with the family, probably, in Australia. Right. Clearly didn't like the guy. Okay, let's pop the final question at her.
You mentioned that your marriage was not a happy one. Was there anything specific that was troubling you?
He was not a nice man when he was drunk, and he suffered from dark moods, but nothing else.
Not even those old bruises.
The bruises on your hands are at least 1 week old. Your husband caused those bruises?
How do you... Yes, he did. He was very angry at the time. Out of control. Again. Sir Eustace was a drunkard. To be tied to such a man for life is worse than death.
Your ladyship?
Mm-hmm. Right. Violent behaviour, no personal life from Australia. Okay, from Australia, no personal life, definitely. Lady Brackenstall married Sir Eustace shortly after arriving in England. Has remained home during that time. There is little possibility that she or her maid are acquainted with anyone in the country. That is kind of true. But she's acquainted with a sailor. Okay, that's quite an interesting possibility. Did she get friendly with the captain of the Rock of Gibraltar? Which means this could still have been a poker blow then. This throws a third party into the mix with a potential, you know, revenge. Also explains why there were two glasses there. And then they probably just poured wine into the third one to make it look like the Randalls had done it. Yeah. Well, Lestrade, you can arrest them. They did it. No. No.
What do you know about Sir Eustace, Inspector? What was his reputation?
A charming man when sober, but an absolute demon when he was drunk. In such moments he was apparently capable of anything. Why, once he splashed fuel on Lady Brackenstall's dog and set it alight. Another day he threw a decanter of wine at Miss Wright's head.
The alcohol seemed to madden him.
To the point that we were forced to intervene several times to avoid a scandal.
So he set a woman's dog on fire. Like, what the hell? Clearly he got angry and threw his silverware down the well, then murdered himself. Case solved. I'm sold. How are you today, Chas? Right, so from the inspector's tale, that corroborates violent behaviour. Domestic violence was violent towards his wife. Not too bad. Awesome. So we had a murderous visitor. So Eustace was murdered by the one person who was visiting that night. It was he who tied up Lady Brackenstall, and he is tall and strong. Means she's acquainted with a sailor. Means we look for a sailor to fill that role. I think it's time we call in on young Master What's-His-Face, the homeless boy. I want a button to pet the doggy. Okay, so how do we do this? Do we just go to the window?
What should we do next, Holmes?
Well, next, we look for a sailor. I wonder if we have to search the archive. Yes. Search for Rock of Gibraltar. 1893. Rock of Gibraltar's arrival. There we go. It's in the newspapers. Arrival of the Rock of Gibraltar, a ship returned. The Rock of Gibraltar, a bulk carrier from Adelaide, Southampton, London line, Cunard Building, James Street, London, so we've got an address, has returned from a 6-month voyage through India, New Zealand and Australia. The ship brought to England Miss Mary Fraser, the heiress of the Fraser family, owning land and tin mines in Australia. So that would be Lady Brackenstall now, I guess. This reportedly beautiful lady is presently engaged to Sir Eustace Brackenstall, one of the wealthiest gentlemen in Kent.
Here it is.
So we know where the Rock of Gibraltar's officers are based, like the company that runs the ship. But we can task young Master Wiggins to go and camp out there, I guess, and see if he can spot a sailor coming or going who's pretty tall.
The Adelaide, Southampton, London line, and its address. Interesting. It must be the place where they keep the records, including the one for the crew of the Rock of Gibraltar.
Oh, we can
I
get
think that if
Wiggins to
you
break
pretend
in.
you're from Scotland Yard, they'll give it to you without any problems.
But I have another solution. I'll call in the specialist.
So I could just walk in there and ask for the records, but I'm going to ask, you know, somebody to do a little B&E instead. Wiggins! Do come up here.
Wiggins, could you come upstairs, please?
At your service, Mr. Holmes.
I need a register, my young friend. If you could borrow it, there will be half a guinea for every one of you. I need the crew list of the Rock of Gibraltar in 1893, and their current employment.
I'm straight on it, Mr. Holmes.
Do you really think they'll find it, Holmes?
My
No, 'cause we haven't told him where to go
better
yet.
than the Yard in many ways.
But young Master Wiggins is pretty good.
Here it is, Mr. Holmes.
There we go.
We can't take it back. It's too risky.
Put it on the table. I'll take care of it. Good work, young Wiggins.
Just my imagination, or does he look a little roughed up?
I left it right on the table for you, sir.
Alrighty then.
This list shows the senior officers of the Rock of Gibraltar, on which Lady Brackenstall and her maid made their voyage. Lady Brackenstall does not know anyone in England. This must mean that someone on this list is our mysterious visitor. And these are the lists of the senior officers of the Adelaide, Southampton, London line ships. Let us find out who was in London upon November the 7th.
Okay, so this is the Gaia list of senior officers. So departure from Adelaide on May the 6th, 1894. Arrived in London November the 12th, 1894. So, yeah, they were out of the country.
I do not think that
No,
this
what am I
sailor
doing?
has any connection to the case.
Ah, I have to click that. There we go. So this ship departed London on October the 17th, 1894, and it will arrive in that's already at sea as well. This one departed on November the 10th, 1894, and it won't arrive until next year in Adelaide, so that's not it. So the St. Thomas, so the crew must have moved around, right? So departed from Adelaide 23rd of October 1894, arrival in London on March the 2nd, 1895. Hang on. What am I doing? No. Obviously, the one that just left. Okay, so it's this ship here. Mr. Jack Crocker, the captain. Mr. Jack Crocker, he's on the list.
Mr. Jack Crocker was in London upon the date of the crime, and he is due to depart in 2 days.
Okay. Mr. Duncan Chalmers, first officer, he's not on the list. Peter Davison, senior second officer. Not about Doctor Who either. He's not on the list. Neil Harkus, Jr. He's not on the list. George Stewart, extra second officer. Not on the list. Frank Willick, third officer. Not on the list. and Murdoch Hooper. Also not on the list. Let's just make sure that none of the others were then. So they were already at sea, so it couldn't be them. They're still at sea. They don't arrive back until the 12th. And the Rock of Gibraltar itself, they left a month ago, so they're still at sea currently. It's got to be that guy then. Let's... We have to find another one then, apparently.
Mr. Jack Crocker.
Yeah.
I do not think... I do not... This list shows the...
What else am I supposed to find here? Because all the other ships have an alibi. So that one hasn't left yet. This ship here. Am I supposed to just find all of them? I think I'm supposed to just find all of them, aren't I? To alibi them. That's probably what we need to do. So let's have a look here. So there's no Charles Chill, no Henry Southwood, Ernest J. Woody, not on there. Thomas Walker is.
This officer is still at sea. Therefore
Okay, so it wants me to tick off all the ones off the list. Right, got it. Herbert Whittington, he was also on the list. He's the 3rd officer.
This officer is still at sea. Therefore he cannot be involved.
John Foxhall's not on the list. Mr. Dunford is not on the list. Archibald Rogers isn't on the list. James Talcott was not one of the ones. Henry Southwood.
This officer is still at sea. Therefore he cannot be involved.
Ernest J. Woody as well.
This officer is still at sea. Therefore he cannot be involved.
We need a Charles Chill and a William Partridge. Charles Chill
this
there.
This officer was on a ship that sailed half a month ago. He wasn't in London at the time of the crime.
And William Partridge
this
there.
This officer was on a ship that sailed half a month ago. He
so we just have Jack Crocker.
At the time of the crime. Captain Jack Crocker is our mysterious visitor. He was the only one around at the time of the murder.
Interesting.
This Crocker, do you think...
It would be interesting to meet him. Our young friend should be able to find him.
Wiggins, I have a job for you again. Another half a guinea.
Wiggins, could you find a way to bring this Captain Crocker here to us?
Here? Holmes, that could be dangerous.
No problem, Mr. Holmes.
I laugh in the face of danger.
Mr. Holmes, I was informed that you were looking for me, and I'd like to know why.
Yes, it is important that we talk. You will soon understand why.
So I've got to look up and down first, see what we've got. There's a very clear look, so he's an honest man. Interesting. But even an honest person will lie about a crime they've committed, wouldn't they? Very strongly built. Something? Nothing on his hands. It's a very strongly built coat. Yeah, that's it. It's not the guy that's strongly built, it's just his coat. How's it going today, Alchemist? Hope you're well. He has newspaper ink. So he's been reading the paper this morning. It's all rubbed off. Some muck all over him. His boots are clean. Trousers are a bit mucky. And he has a knife. Look at that. Just chilling for a minute to annoy me. Dude, you could never annoy me. Unless you know, really annoy me. So he has a knife. Interesting.
You are acquainted with Lady Mary Brackenstall, are you not?
Yes, I think I do remember her. From when I was first officer, but I still don't see...
It seems your relationship went beyond that of mere passenger and first officer.
How dare you?
Indeed, how reckless a feeling is love, particularly if one is prepared to commit a murder in its name.
Explain yourself this instant.
You are aware that the murder made the headlines of the morning press. You read the newspaper report, but to your dismay, found it much fabricated. Once you learned that I wanted to see you, you came straight away. You needed to know what I had found.
You... And what do you know?
That evening, you were with Lady Brackenstall, despite the danger.
I'm not afraid, Mr. Holmes. Besides, all of this is just guesswork.
You would be right, if there was no evidence.
What then?
The Deponia games are on Xbone. Really? Good. They're really good. Everybody should play those games. They're so much fun. But Rufus is just the worst, though. He's just the worst person there is. It's awesome. Anyway, yes. You tied her up.
Lady Brackenstall was tied to a chair on the night of the murder. And it was you who tied her up.
You call that evidence?
You're tall enough to reach with the knife. You used sailor's knots.
Yes, as she was tied with a sailor's knot. Your handiwork.
So,
Come on in, Shy.
it's a sailor who's done it. That proves nothing, Mr. Holmes. I'm not the only sailor in London right now. Your theory is flawed anyway. On the night of the murder, I was aboard the Sharp. I was supervising the repair of a porthole.
At night?
It was an emergency. There was a leak. You can ask the ship's carpenter. He can confirm.
I'm sure that he can.
Perfect. In that case, we have nothing more to talk about. Good evening, gentlemen.
So he's an honest man, but he hasn't
Holmes,
outright
what should we do
denied
now?
doing it. He's just
Would you like
challenged
to
us
check
that we
his
don't
alibi?
have anything to convict him
No,
on.
there is no doubt that these men will testify in his favor, and there will be no way to check.
So, what then?
So, we must work with what we have. We have all the puzzle pieces.
Wait, we
Now I
have
understand why you
everything?
dissected the bell rope.
So Call Crocker is completed. So Crocker's made a statement. Crocker is lying, his involvement is clear. He appeared as soon as he heard I was looking for him, thus signalling his guilt. Captain Crocker was aboard the Sharp on the night of the murder. He was not afraid to confront me. He had a confident demeanour. Crocker's involvement. Let's go with that first. Let's see what this leads to. So, Captain Crocker becomes the killer. Now we have to decide whether or not we have him arrested. Jack Crocker is a murderer. You'll bring him and his accomplice Lady Brackenstall to justice, or we absolve them. It was committed in self-defense. Jack Crocker defended a woman against a violent dipsomaniacal man. The mystery is solved, but you need to decide to keep it a secret. There's no need to inform the police. Oh, I'd be tempted to go down that route. We've been absolute justice most of the way, but I think with this one, yeah. Girlfriend wants to know what part of England I'm from. I'm from South Yorkshire, a place called Barnsley. It's a nice little coal mining town. It's actually, if you watch Game of Thrones, Sean Bean, the actor, is from Sheffield. That's the city immediately to the south of us. So I'm just from north of where Sean Bean comes from. Lots and lots of black sooty brick. There is, yeah. One of the roads when you come down into town from the motorway, there's all like old houses that were built in the late 1800s. So they were there like in the Industrial Revolution still, when it was still pumping away. And the brickwork has had so much soot over it over the years and years that it's blackened. They can clean it off. I mean, the town hall is a nice big white brick building, but rather big stone building. But it was once, I remember when I was a kid, it was still rather dirty looking and black. And like the edges of it were all like, you know, scoured black and so on. But they've cleaned it all off since, so yeah. She said that's nifty. There we go. It is nifty. But I'll be moving to Canada soon. I'll be a Canadian. And I'm looking forward to that. When I marry Shy there. In 28 days! Oh my god. There we go. Alright, so let's try some different combinations of evidence. Let's go back this way. So if we say there were 3 people instead, if we look at their story, 3 people. Internal screaming. Semi-Canadian, you ain't getting rid of that accent. No, that's true. 39 years of this, it's not going to go very far, no. So if there were 3 people, it couldn't be an imitated robbery, so the robbery was the motive, but then why would they leave the silverware down the well in the garden of the house they just robbed? Makes no sense. The Randall gang therefore did it, according to that theory. Which makes it a poker blow. That can't work if Crocker's alibi holds, so we've got to change that. Now that all becomes fine. And the Randall gang are guilty. I mean, you know, if that's the case, they're guilty of other robberies anyway, so go arrest them for sure. That doesn't change the fact, you know, that maybe the captain did it. But if we go with that... Glory to Lestrade! The case is too simple for you. Take this opportunity to give all the credit to your friend Lestrade. Your name will not appear in the press because it's the wrong answer. Or we can trump the police. The speed with which you resolve this thorny problem is indicative of genius. The police naturally only demonstrated their incompetence. That's such a Holmes way of approaching it, but that's not the real. I'm pretty sure that's not what happens. Over time it'll erode. That is true, yeah. It'll soften a lot more. A friend of yours who moved to New Zealand a few years back is now starting to sound like a New Zealander when you talk to her rather than a Canadian. Cool. Yeah. I mean, I'll say A at the end of every sentence and things like that. I'm pretty sure I'll pick up a bunch of things. I mean, my accent isn't as thickly Barnsley as, you know, it would be. People here talk much more broadly than I do. I've worked in retail for so long that I had to talk to customers who were coming from all over the place, you know, so I had to soften my accent to be able to talk to people. It is a thickly enough accent, yeah, it's never going to go away, but this was my professional voice. Oh yeah, people here, I mean, when Shy visited, it was like, I don't understand what these people are saying. So you had to translate. The guy, remember when we went to the Italian place for dinner that night, and the waiter guy who was there, not the Italian guy that owned the place, but his son, who's from Barnsley, you know, he's lived here all his life. Oh my god, he went on and talked about something, and then when he went, I was like, I don't know what he just said to us. What's your unprofessional voice? I'll probably put it on for you one day, we'll see. When the occasion arises, it'll slowly drip out. Because Barnsley people, right, they talk like this when you know, when it's like a Barnsley accent, they'll say now then and thee and thou and that kind of thing, and I don't know what they're talking about half the time. That's Barnsley. That's deep Barnsley right there. Anyway, so I want to try a solution where it's actually an accident. Let's see if this leads to anything. Like the guy with a shed full of guns and a hot fuzz. Yes! Yes, I love that scene. That's what has to happen sometimes. Where they needed to bring the guy with the dog. You know, like, why do we need the dog? He's like, we don't need the dog, we need the guy. He can translate for the farmer. But they can't understand what the other guy's saying, so Nick Frost is translating for him as well, and that's a brilliant scene. I love it. That's a Britishism all over. So we have so many varied accents crammed together. There's not thousands of miles between accents here. It's just like 50 dialects compressed down into a small island. It's great.